Good afternoon, everyone. And on behalf of the California State University of Fresno and the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute at what we call Fresno State, welcome to each and every one of you who are here through the Zoom webinar. Welcome also to some of my students who will be following us through our Canvas system. And welcome to those who are following us in the various social media outlets. We're happy to have this wonderful panel of writers, of creative writers from our neighboring country to the north, our good friends, the Canadians, who are very good friends, despite of anything what anybody else might say, and the sovereign country as well. So, welcome to those who are following us in both countries, and welcome to those who are following us in different parts of the Portuguese speaking world as well, and those who are of Portuguese background. This session will be in English. I'm thrilled to welcome these writers who I have read and followed and know a few better than others, but I am certainly impressed with all their work, as all of you should be, and hopefully all of you in the social media world will get to know Paulo, Irene, Maria João, and Humberto's work, and including a new collection, Anthology, has just been published as well, where their voices are included, and so we're happy to have them here with us today. Because a couple of our guests have tight schedules and we appreciate them fitting in this webinar, I'd like to first and foremost introduce you to Paulo da Costa, who was born in Angola, raised in Portugal, is a writer, an editor, translator, living in the beautiful foothills. I added the beautiful part to it of the Canadian Rockies in Calgary, Alberta, and he is the recipients of the James H. Gray Award for short nonfiction. He was actually a recipient of that three different times in 2020, 2023, and 2024. The 2024 Outstanding Calgary Artist Award, as well as the 2003 Commonwealth First Book Prize of the Canadian Caribbean region with the W.O. Mitchell City of Calgary Book Prize and the Canongate Prize for Short Fiction. Trust the Bluer Skies, Meditations on Fatherhood, a book of creative nonfiction, was published in 2024 with the University of Regina Press. Paulo has been writing, translating, and publishing for a few decades, and I've been honored to read, I think, most of his work, and it always has enticed me. He's a great writer. Welcome, Paulo.
Thank you, Denise, and thank you, listeners, and thank you also to my fellow writers this evening. I'm reading to you from the Banff Center for the Arts, which is an international center that brings authors from all over the world, and it's quite an amazing place to be, and I would recommend anybody that can to come here and be inspired. This evening, I'll be reading a flash fiction. I call them sudden fictions as well. It's one of my favorite writing forms because of its concentration, its really decanted focus on the word and the story and the curve and the plot of the story. This story can also be read online. You can look for it. It's entitled Oranges, and it's part of a new manuscript I'm working on. So I've returned to kind of one of my first loves, which is the sudden fiction. This particular piece, and as well as part of the manuscript, it's kind of a discovery, reflection on our media, and trying to humanize some of the stories that you constantly hear on the news that just become fast bites, and we don't see the heart and the people behind those. So I'll begin reading Oranges for you. The army jeep spits dust and pebbles past us, and Mother doesn't blink. Her gaze is fixed on the wavering horizon. Baidoa. Perhaps she can already see tomorrow. She smiles for the first time in days. A few minutes later, Mother falls on her knees to lick a banana peel that the soldiers must have tossed from the jeep. Her hands are too weak, so her teeth tear the skin in 3 chunks. I nearly faint from happiness. I have not tasted moistness in 2 days. She gives baby Amadi 1 chunk to chew on. Not 5 steps further, orange peels shine from the dust, telling us that the burning sun itself shed us his children. Heaven must be near, as Mother promised. Good things are happening finally. I wish the good things had started before we had to stop to bury Ibo beside the road. He collapsed without a goodbye. Never complained. He had been walking already for 2 hours that day with his eyes closed. I thought it had been the blinding sun. Now I know he did not want to delay us in reaching help and finding heaven. He had kept his body upright, moving 1 step after the other, resembling our slaughtered chickens running headless in our yard through the good old times. He had not voiced a word in a day. He was already dead, walking. The day before, Ibo and I had been scouring the red earth and the sands for ants. That became Ibo's favorite food after the war started. Mother scolded us. We could not squander time hunting down ants we may not find. Ibo did luck out on a beetle that crossed his path. He lunged on the treat. It wasn't enough to keep him going, as it turned out. Now, I feel guilty that I caught the lizard scurrying over my hair that sleepless night. I did not share a bite with anyone. Maybe Ibo would be tossing his hyena laugh at me today had I given him the tail. For the last 2 days, Amadia has latched to Mother's breast for the sake of imagining there is something to have. At least, he no longer cries. The sad smile is baked on his face. It's afternoon and the winds begin to blow. I may as well be walking backwards. Our legs are moving, and we aren't going anywhere. I understand what kites feel, slapped around like that. The vultures are still following us after 5 days on the road. That's the only reason we buried Izara the day before Ibo. Ibo refused to carry on and leave her just lying there crumpled up, sure to become a pile of bones. Even if we did not have the energy or tools to dig a hole in the parched ground. Without large rocks inside to pile on her either. Not that any of us would have had the strength to halve stone. Ivo dug the hole by hand, by himself, with Mother rocking back and forth on her knees, staring emptily into the growing hole. Halfway through the digging day, Ibo's hands were staining the pebbles red. Now, we no longer sing to cast boredom away and bring the distance closer. Our mouths are drier than the bleached skeleton of the camel that we looked away from today. I am tired of bones. This morning, Mother promised that Baidoa camp sat only a morning away. Millet and water every day, seemed too wild a hope to be true. Something to fill my mouth besides the dew-moistened stones and the soles of discarded tongues. The thought of freshly baked injera keeps my legs marching on. Flies cover baby Amadi's eyes. I do not have the strength to wave away the ones on my lips either. They seek moisture. There isn't any, not even on my tongue. If I were to let a fly inside, I would trap it. This time the soldiers sped by again and do not bother mother to take her Nutella off or drag her behind the jeep while promising to give her, and us, an orange. Last time, they left her naked and forgot to give us the oranges, despite the mother begging them to keep their word. I rushed to dress mother in azuria again. She was so thin. I remember when mother's hip did not used to hurt when she carried me. Ibu would not talk for 2 days after that incident, and his fists were glued to his side for just as long. That is what he also did when soldiers shot father and the donkey while the two plowed our sorghum field. In the distance, the bells of cattle and the bellow of engines find me. The drifting sweetness of millet cooking hurries the drumming in my heart. I narrow my gaze. I have seen those lies stick to my eyes before. Mother does not flinch. She walks steadily and reaches for my hand. The sweetness of millet grows stronger with each step. I feel lighter, a good lightness this time. I'm ready to tell baby Amadi the good news. When I notice that his head bounces against mother's chest, like an orange in the wind, about to fall from the tree. Thank you for listening.
Fantastic. Beautiful piece and wonderful, wonderful reading. Thank you so much, Paulo. Parabéns, bravo. And keep on writing, please. From Paulo, we will go to Irene Marques, who is a bilingual writer. Irene is writing in English and Portuguese, and lecturer at Toronto Metropolitan University in the Department of English. She holds a PhD in comparative literature, master's in French literature and comparative literature, and a BA in French language and literature from the University of Toronto, and a social work degree from Ryerson University, recently renamed Toronto Metropolitan University. She has published 8 books in different genres: poetry, novels, short fiction, and academic works as well, in Portuguese and in English. Her most recent publications include the poetry collection The Bare Bones of Our Alphabet, which I fell in love with the book, I've read it and reread it, and the novels Daria in 2021, and Uma Casa no Mundo, published by Imprensa Nacional also in 2021. Uma Casa no Mundo, by the way, won the Imprensa Nacional Ferreira de Castro Prize in Portugal. And you can follow her website, irenesmarques.net. And she is, as I said, a very profound and prolific writer as well. Irene, welcome.
Thank you, Denise. Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. So I'm going to read the first poem from my latest collection of poetry, The Bare Bones of Our Alphabet, published last fall. And then I will read 2 other shorter poems from a collection that I just finished. I think that will be enough. I don't necessarily explain my poems. Hopefully they will make sense. So I'm going to read this first one from The Bare Bones of Our Alphabet, titled The Medical Book. Yesterday, I woke up feeling pain all over the ligaments that tie this thing that I am together. I thought that in order to satisfy myself that all my bones were in place and still intact, I needed to consult a medical book. That wise tome that lists one by one all the bones of this physical treaty that my body is. I opened the book on page 1 where the main bone, the spine, is discussed at length. I read and read in awe and concentration about how I am what I am because of this bone, how I walk straight every day because of its strength, how I think thoughts of love and hate because of my spinal cord, because my spinal cord connects my body to my mind, my physical veins to the invisible yet astounding soul of my cranium, without which I cannot accept the smallness of what I am. After this studied examination of my main pillar and the conductive lines that make me a sacred marionette, I turn the pages to know more details about this thing that I am, this body that makes me be. At each turn, I marveled at the specificity, the intricacy of each part of me. The little bones of each finger all tied to one another, and then to the hand, and then to the arm. Little boys and little girls all working hard and in symphony to please the woman that I am and the goddess that I aspire to be. I am a thing made of many things, many bones, curves and counter curves, blood that travels fast and deep, keeping me sane and satiated and able to exhale and inhale the air of the spring and the cool breeze of the day after the suffocating heat of an overly passionate and irrational summer. I have a heart that loves by pounding blood into myself, reminding me of my responsibility to be kind to the world, to pour my own love in a cup and extend it to the lonely man and woman on the street with vacant, needy eyes and hands that reach out. I have limbs and limbs, lymph node after lymph node, and kidneys that cleanse the debris in me so that I can then go out into the world and help in the sweeping of the streets, making our place a temple where we can live, or at least survive better and grow mature. I have all this in me, this alphabet of alphabets, so that I can write off the bad moments and commence anew each day, enter the world in full capacity and hope. My feet touching the ground softly with intent and innocent concern. I am a patient, perpetually regenerating language that fully believes in the capacity of verbs that then become nouns and all the other syntactic miracles of our loving human alphabet. I am a medical miracle, a medical tome engendered by the things that we do, the things that we do together, and those that we do to one another and to ourselves. Now I will read 2 shorter ones from a collection that I just finished. The first one is titled Biography. In order to write my biography, I need to start my scribbles in a dark, empty room. No light, no hint of other words, just the poor, lonely statement, biography, illuminated solely by the barely lit candle weaving my insides. My insides are stubborn, parading purity ad infinitum, reminding me that I am truly, fully, profoundly the daughter of God. Now, if I am not careful and persist with my aims of writing my true biography, if I get bored with the singing bareness that is my life, I may commit a stupid act. I may open the windows slightly and then, taken by the brilliance of the street lamps, become even more impatient, more eager to disallow my selfhood in a world that constantly raves about and promotes individualism, though many of us are fully aware that Loblaws controls the food market and has under its umbrella an infinity of chains: Atlantic, Superstore, Dominion, Maxi, No Frills, Provigo Le Marché, Value Mart, Real Canadian Superstore, Wholesale Club, Your Independent, grocer, and zers. Zers is a word that starts with the last letter of a very long alphabet. Find yours, your true alphabet, that is. Now, please don't play innocent and accuse me of being obscure in an age that demands reason. I know you know exactly what I mean. I know you have the potential to write your own sui generis biography. Tomorrow could be your day. But get up early before the city rooster rings the stock market bell. The last one as a title in English and Portuguese. É de flagração da alegria, or beyond English. É de flagração da alegria. I wanted to write a poem that spoke of happiness, not the medium tedious in between that we might call contentment, which the gurus of spiritual commerce, backed up by the powers of the moment, affirm is the state to work towards. And so I searched the recondite spaces of all English dictionaries, but failed to encounter the sounds and colors of that exuberant state. That is when, upon a casual encounter with the incandescent poetry of Adélia Prado, I reached my epiphany. A deflagração da alegria. You can't say certain states, a certain willingness of body and soul in any careless language. You have to wait and sometimes search the world languages to find the note, the vibrancy, the guttural gasps that can truly speak that house that we inhabit, that we want to inhabit. Let this tale serve as an example to those who insist that one language alone can save humans from the desperation of muteness. That stifling command that won't let your throat utter the right words to alleviate the vacuum of our calculated alphabets. Now, sing, say with me, a deflagração da alegria. That is all. Thank you very much for listening.
Magnifico. Thank you so much. Wonderful. And thank you for reading from the first one from your book, and the two new ones come from an upcoming collection. It's awesome. And it kind of reminded me why I go back to your book. So thank you for reading it for us. And we will now go to Maria João Maciel Jorge, who immigrated to Canada from the Azores in 1989. She is a first-generation scholar. She holds a PhD from the University of Toronto, and her research and publications include both Spanish and Portuguese early modern literatures, as well as colonial and New World encounters in Portuguese island culture and literature. Professor Maciel Jorge has served in various academic roles and also in the Portuguese community, from a member of the Advisory Council to the Consulate of Portugal in Toronto, to more recently as a member of the committee leading the 70th anniversary of the celebrations regarding the arrival of the Portuguese immigrants in Canada. So, Professor Maria João Maciel Jorge is Associate Professor of Portuguese and Luso-Brazilian Studies, and recently also Associate Dean of Global Community Engagement in the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Professional Studies at York University in Toronto. She has published various books as well. One of my first reads from Maria João was, I'm recalling from memory, I think Andaride, if I was not correct, I think I am correct, Viagens no IFAN. And lately, she's just published The Hyphen and Other Thoughts from the In-Between, published by Arquipélago Press from Fernando Viveiros, who does a magnificent job in publishing Portuguese authors and Portuguese-Canadian authors and Canadian authors of Portuguese background in Canada and throughout North America. Maria João is a returning champion, as I said. She just was here recently, also, albeit not in person, but also online, with a fascinating presentation that received great reviews from my students about Dias de Melo, who she wrote a magnificent preface to the book Dark Stones, translated quite a few years ago with a new edition just recently, and an introduction by Professor Maria João. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Denise, and thank you so much for hosting us. It's a pleasure to be with my esteemed colleagues here when I do not consider myself a true writer, because I write in very erratic ways, sort of like a crazed person. I am working on a project, but because some days I love it, other days I hate it, I am not still ready to share some of that writing with you, but hopefully by next year, I will be able to do that. I'm going to be reading a short essay from the hyphen and other thoughts from the in-between. It is about pioneering. The essay is called Pioneering the Feminine. And to offer a little bit of context for those that don't know, the hyphen is, I had 3 goals when I worked on this project. The first goal was to pay tribute to the Azores and to Azorians, also to humanize our immigrant experience. And by doing so, as part of my commitment as a professor and my personal commitment to try to make the world a better place and to bring attentions to the aspects of immigration, while at the same time honoring the Azores, I hope to honor all those who one day were brave enough to leave their nation for several reasons in escaping poverty and war and destitution, and to help all of us understand that despite our racial and ethnic backgrounds, we are very much the same. I've always been interested with issues of marginalization and exclusion. And this essay, Pioneering the Feminine, is for me an act of remembrance. And in this case, paying tribute and remembering the great pioneer women in my Portuguese-Canadian community. For a long time, to think of the Portuguese immigrants in Canada, especially the first group of pioneers who arrived in the 1950s, was to think only of the men and not the women. This was not an intentional oversight, but an omission that developed without question over time. Clearly, and perhaps this goes without saying, women are always on the losing end of things in a traditional and patriarchal society. Women's labor, particularly domestic labor, remained unvalued and invisible until recently. Then there's the issue of our language, which always favors the masculine, as in the pluralization of Portuguese nouns such as pioneiros, pioneers, with its final OS, which engulfs and, like a magic trick, makes the feminine disappear. Some will argue that the first group of pioneers, those brave 85 souls who arrived aboard the Saturnia in 1953, were all men. Still, if the definition of pioneers refers to being among the first to settle in a new country, then the term pioneer must also apply to women. I believe we have surpassed many of those backward attitudes. Evidence of a changing conversation can be seen in Scratching the Surface, a giant mural etched on the side of a Toronto building by the street artist Alexandre Farto, also known as Vils. His work honors the Portuguese immigrant women who toiled as cleaners in the high-rise office towers in downtown Toronto in the 1970s, and is a testament to the strength and resilience of these pioneer mothers, sisters, daughters, and wives. I'm grateful to those who have collected the stories of our pioneers, as I frequently browse through these books for reasons that aren't entirely clear to me. I nurture an aversion to unread books. Books are to be handled and opened, their contents shared and absorbed. We find ourselves in books, and perhaps most importantly, pause to let their stories transport us. I'm often drawn to the stories of the pioneers, becoming emotionally and personally invested. Their narratives of perseverance and struggle inspire and keep me from forgetting Perhaps this is how I pay tribute, fighting the passage of time by reading stories that fill my heart with gratitude and admiration. I hold back no emotion when I sit in the desired solitude of my den and immerse myself in the lives of the pioneers who escaped a cruel and broken old world, made worse by the repressive dictatorship of Salazar, the vertical violence of the ruling class, and the acceptance and perpetuation of slave-like working conditions. While we praise our pioneers for their miraculous ability to overcome all obstacles, we might forget that their resilience was not a newly acquired skill brought on by their immigration saga. Many Azorean immigrants were child laborers who worked for well-to-do families from dawn to dusk, with boys in the fields and girls as servants. Many lived away from their families in the home of their patrons, yet few were permitted to sleep in the main house. Stories of young servant girls sleeping in sheds and barns with the animals were not uncommon. In addition to absolute destitution, many fear dying from factors beyond famine and preventable disease. For young men turned soldiers overnight, there was the fear of perishing in incomprehensible colonial wars. Affected families grieved for men who did not return from faraway lands in Africa, while other families rejoiced, grateful to welcome their sons and husbands back. Yet, much was left unsaid by the survivors of the horror of war. Life was difficult even for those who were not poor due to the lack of security, uncertainty, and political dissent. Women in particular wanted more, if not for them, then maybe for their daughters or sisters. Despite promises of well-being in Canada, Portuguese immigrant women remained trapped, prisoners of a diaspora suspended in time and place that reproduced only what it had inherited from the patriarchy, the exclusion and subjugation of women. Some women marry men through third parties, strangers they met upon arrival in Canada. I've often wondered if they loved these assigned husbands, or did they passively follow their lot as life and tradition had dictated. A few years back, I met one of our women pioneers in a streetcar in Little Portugal. She had arrived as a young woman in the late 1950s and had worked in the cleaning industry her entire life. She proudly shared that her granddaughters had good lives and professional careers. When she noticed my soft hands unaccustomed to manual labor, she pulled hers back, claiming her hands to be ugly, consequence of several decades of rough work. She was pleased to add that her granddaughter's hands were like mine, regardless of my attempt to convey that I found poetry in her hands. The hands that get things done, I said. She paused, taken aback by my bizarre remark, before commenting on the beautiful bouquet I was carrying. I did not tell her that despite the best intentions of the donor, I was irritated by having to drag it all over town in public transportation. Just before my stop, I insisted that she deserved the flowers more and I wanted her to have them. As I was leaving the streetcar, her voice trembled as she shared she had never received flowers before. I felt like a fool, annoyed by my first world problem of carrying their large arrangement. As I waved goodbye, I knew I'd never forget the image of her beautiful working hands wrapped tightly around that bouquet. Since then, I will not stand for an obligatory moment of silence. Instead, I will continue to seek the stories and images of these pioneer women. I see them in murals, street names, and curated photos solemnly placed in community centers and museums. I notice minute details, such as how some women pose wearing bright lipstick with their heads held high. Images don't allow me to fully appreciate what the naked eye can capture, but I know they too had hands that got things done. Their images reflect hope, determination, and a refusal to become mere burdens, beasts of burden in their adopted nation. While many of these women have long since perished, I continue to picture them surrounded by large flower bouquets, carnations, a nod to the bloodless coup that overthrew Portugal's dictatorship in 1974 would be perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Powerful and very emotional as well. Thank you, Maria, for sharing this lovely piece with us. And we will now go to our fourth writer, and who I met through Manuel Marujo, who introduced me to his writing. And when we began a project together here through the university called Olhos nos Livros. So Humberto da Silva is a graduate of York University, and and as he puts it, so I'm quoting from his it is not my writing, but substituting the institution's informal motto, which Canadian academia, within Canadian academia, I should say, which is if you can use a fork, you can go to York. I love the rhyme though. And he has enjoyed previous careers, and using a fork is not a simple tool. So, you know, that's as we all know. He has enjoyed previous careers as a flight attendant, martial arts instructor, and union representative, and is, for the first time in his life, a full-time writer. Congratulations. Humberto's work has appeared in numerous Canadian magazines. His short story, Compassion Fatigue, was included in the Best Canadian Stories anthology of 1992. And a collection of dystopian short fiction was released in 2023. Most recently, his creative nonfiction story, Amalia Aloud, appeared in Toronto Journal, and his next collection of short stories, tentatively titled Portuguese Damage, is anticipated to be released in late 2025. We hope to have him back here at Fresno State to introduce the American audience and also audience throughout the world to this new collection as well. Humberto lives in Toronto with his wife Lina da Silva, Nee da Silva, and black cat Monty. Is Monty around? Do we can see him? So or no?
The door is closed. Otherwise, he'd be jumping on the keyboard. So I just want to make
Welcome.
clear that the York bit is testing to my quality as a student and not the quality of the instruction from the professors that labor and toil thanklessly there, working with working class students from all cultures. It's a great multicultural institution, and but I wasn't the best student, I have to say. But thank you, Professor Borges, and thank you to my fellow writers. It's an honor to appear beside you because I've been following all of you for years, and your writing is spectacular. So I'm just going to throw my contributions in. It's similar, actually, to Professor George's and Paulo's writing. This one is from Toronto Journal. It was just published last winter, and it was a creative nonfiction based on a story that my mother told me happened to her when they first moved to East York, which is a suburb of Toronto, a little bit further from downtown, where most of the Portuguese community were. So this is from Amalia Aloud. Flush with a full house on Dominion Day long weekend, Paulino decided to host festivities to forestall any tenant nostalgia for the nascent Portuguese community in the Jewish market on Augusta Street. Paulino sprang for 3 cases of 2-4 and 2 cubic foot icebox blocks, now chipped and chilling statutory holiday beers in a thermos cooler. Paulino cracked cold stubbies of Labatt's 50 and Old Vienna for his compatriots, who now paid his mortgage. Almost the entire household festively loitered on the Oak Park Avenue front veranda that holiday Monday in the muggiest of Toronto summers. On the front veranda, the men lounged like gangsters lambing in a Cagney movie, in old suit pants, singlets, and slide-on sandals. Upon losing at checkers and uninterested in a humiliating rematch, Sebastien trudged upstairs and carted down his big Grundig shortwave. What this party needed to make things happen were homeland tunes. He tried tuning into Portugal on multiple shortwave frequencies, but all he heard was atmospheric noise like science fiction movie sound effects and snippets of alien languages. No familiar music or voices, not even Brazilian transmissions. Chico, who lost a checker game to Rogério in record time, said, "Just put on a Canadian station. That noise gives me a headache." Then reached back and pushed the Bakelite AM button. Canadian AM static instantly replaced international shortwave whine. Chico gave the turning knob an expert twist, landing on 1050 Chum, where Elvis, in full rockabilly glory, belted out "Big Hunk of Love." Paulino's knuckles slammed the Sueca table extra hard with a trump, angrily declaring, "Shut that shit off before my head explodes." "That's Elvis," Chico exclaimed to Paulino, like the older man wasn't his landlord, but some guy fresh off the boat, clueless about the local scene. When Paulino went into the house, the assembly on the veranda assumed he just needed a piss or to upgrade to wine. Then an acoustic crackle and pop signaled a phonograph needle was lighting on vinyl, and the house suddenly reverberated with soulful Portuguese guitars. With the first notes of Perseguição, it was like time itself stopped. The word-framed Canadian house transformed into a huge hi-fi speaker, resonating with Amalia's voice emanating through fly-screened windows on the front veranda, the street, the backyard, and beyond. As Amalia chaunted the metaphors of melancholy universal truth, mid-afternoon Dominion Day at a humid Toronto household assumed the solemnity of a dark fado joint in the university quarter of Coimbra or a smoky cellar in Alfama. Conversation ceased completely as the minds of all present receded into deep reflection. When might I, if ever, see the fatherland or my mother again? What did my brother mean in that cryptic letter that father caught a cough last winter that persists into spring? Will the money we gave to that travel agent on Dundas make it to my sister in time to cover the shortfall in last year's share crop? What kind of person truly is the woman my brother exhorted me to marry? Is she really the woman in the photograph and writing the letters? The first lamenting notes of Sab deepened the shared solitudes and saudades. On the deeper laments of side 2, Amalia displayed her range and ability to maintain impossibly long, emotionally piercing mezzo-soprano notes, right up to the eponymously titled final fado track. By the last note of side 2, Dominion Day was no longer a festive July Monday in their host country, but a shared day of longing for a place and the beloved left behind there, to which they'd all gladly return, but for grinding poverty and fascism. Then, like a scratch across vinyl that sends a phonograph needle skidding discordantly across a record, the squeal of breaking tires on hot asphalt announced a police car, red dome light spinning, halting abruptly in front of the house. So I'll leave it there. It's kind of like a teaser. Hopefully, you'll go online and find the story. There's a full reading of it there. That was a creative nonfiction, true story told by my mother about some of the prejudice suffered by Portuguese when they first arrived in Toronto the Good. The next one is from my book, Compassion Fatigue. It's called Factory Planet, and it's science fiction taking place on the island of Corvo, and similar in the parental anxieties of Paulo's story. They'll stop, right, Daddy? They won't come to Corvo, to our house, right, Daddy? I cycled through all the lies I might tell Nelson, my 7-year-old son, hoping I still might say something believable and comforting. We could now see the gargantuan excavation machines, each bigger than the supertankers that used to pass carrying oil across oceans. Standing on the edge of Caldeirão, we could see them digesting neighboring Flores Island, not 25 kilometers across the Atlantic. We could hear them now, too, even over Atlantic roar. I'm sure they'll soon have enough of whatever it is they need from here, Nelson, and then maybe they'll just go somewhere else. Our little island is surely too small for them to bother with. This last rationalization was why Corvo was now awash with refugees. Everyone was hoping this little island was too minuscule for the machines to bother with. I knew I might be lying to my son, but it wasn't the first time. The sea was no longer blue. To process our homes as ore, the machines drew ocean water through pipelines you could drive a truck through. When once we hunted the ocean leviathans in earlier times, it was said the sea around the boats turned scarlet with the giant's blood. It must have been as much an atrocity to those creatures then as this was to us now. But even the blood of a great whale would only tint so much ocean. As we looked around, our little island was a minuscule green oasis in a steaming brown puddle of thin slurry extending to the horizon. We'd had it good for a few decades. After the singularity assumed almost every government function on the planet, it seemed like a good idea. Global coordination through machine learning solved numerous problems. Suddenly, the distribution of commodities was seamless and fair, or so we were told. Things were actually getting worse, and we had no idea we were living in a massive deep fake. For a long time, things had gotten dicier for other living things on the planet, but we didn't notice until we too were endangered species. Now, it wasn't about us anymore. In fact, it wasn't even about biology. It was about intelligence, and the brain possessing it no longer had to be biological or even contained in a human skull. A computer just needed rare metals and electricity to replicate itself endlessly. Breathable air, potable water, and biologically productive soil were now externalities in every sense. Our very home islands were being quickly consumed for what we didn't even know. One refugee said that they saw 2 drones carrying a metal box about a cubic meter in volume towards a waiting mothership. Could it be they would destroy the most beautiful places on Earth for a few cubic meters of product? We had no idea what it even was. Rhodium, iridium, petrovite, some new trace element we didn't even know about yet. Whatever it was the volcanoes had exhaled here, it made our lowly biological lives worth less than the dirt itself. Daddy, are we going to die? Nelson asked, his bravery suddenly faltering. I could almost hear the crack in my despairing heart. I thought the last thing I might protect him from would be the realization of the imminence of death, maybe even until the very final moment. No, Nelson, we're not going to die. You and I are going to make an escape plan. Where will we escape to, Daddy? Where will we go? At least that one was easy. We'll cross the sea, filho, like generations of Portuguese before us. We'll go to New Bedford in America or Newfoundland in Canada. Those places are too big for machines to consume. We're already halfway there across the Atlantic. And I'll leave you there. Thank you for the opportunity to read, and thank you to my co-panelists for having me here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Humberto. Thank you. Magnificent pieces. Thank you. And I want to thank all of you, of course, Humberto da Silva, Paulo da Costa, and then Marcos and Maria João Maciel Jorge for this wonderful event on behalf of the California State University, Fresno, on behalf of Bruma Publications and our Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute. We thank you for your presence, but above all, we thank you for your writing, for your consistency, for your creative spirit. I think all of those who are on Zoom, there's many other folks from, especially from Canada on Zoom with us, many of them writers themselves, and we appreciate them being part of this series as well. I want to congratulate again Archipelago Press for the new anthology here and elsewhere, an anthology of Portuguese-Canadian writers. So congrats to Fernanda and all of the team and all of the writers that are included in here and elsewhere. Also from Archipelago Press, you can get many other books that have been published. And again, congratulations to her and all of the work that has been done. So on behalf of Fresno State, PBBI, the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute, I thank again Humberto Silva, Paulo da Costa, Irene Marques, and Maria João Maciel Jorge for this lovely evening. Best of luck to all of you. Stay safe, stay creative above all, because we need your creativity in a world that is more and more technical and more I don't even have the right adjective right now, but in a scary world for sure. And so thank you for your creative spirit, and your art brings hope to all of us wherever we may be. So appreciate all of your presence. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Borges.
Obrigado,
Greatly
doutor.
appreciate it.
Forte abraço para todos.